You move through life believing you are steering every choice, every relationship, every success or failure. Yet somehow, certain situations keep repeating themselves as if the universe is recycling old episodes of your story. The same arguments play out with different people. The same frustrations creep into new jobs. The same emotions rise up when you least expect them. It can feel like déjà vu, like something bigger than you is quietly scripting your experiences. And in a sense, that's exactly what's happening. Beneath the surface of your awareness, there is a blueprint, a hidden architecture of beliefs, emotional habits, and subconscious rules. This blueprint is like invisible code, running silently in the background, shaping the way you think, feel, and act. Most people never notice it. They assume life just happens to them. They chalk it up to fate or bad luck, never realizing there's a predictable pattern at play. If you've ever wondered why certain situations keep coming back no matter how much effort you put into changing, it's not because you're broken. It's because the algorithm underneath hasn't been rewritten. You can patch things on the surface, like forcing positive affirmations or creating a new routine, but if the underlying code is the same, eventually the old results reappear. That's why it feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Exhausting, temporary, and ultimately discouraging. The first step in decoding your inner universe is to see the repetition not as a curse but as a clue. Life isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to point your attention toward the pattern you've been unconsciously repeating. Think of it like an error message on a computer. It doesn't mean the system is useless. It just means a specific line of code needs adjusting. And when you learn how to adjust it, the whole program starts running differently. One way to spot your hidden blueprint is to track the stories you keep telling yourself. Not the ones you post online or share with friends, but the quiet ones in your own head. Do you often think, "Things never work out for me"? Or, "I can't trust anyone fully"? Or, "No matter what I do, I'll never get ahead"? These phrases might feel like observations, but they're actually rules, unspoken programs, telling your subconscious how to behave. Try writing them down for a week. Every time a repeated thought crosses your mind, catch it and put it on paper. After a few days, you'll see patterns forming. That list is a snapshot of the blueprint you've been running. Another way to reveal the code is by examining your emotional triggers. Pay attention to the moments when you react more strongly than the situation calls for. Someone makes a harmless comment, yet it stings for hours. A small inconvenience suddenly feels overwhelming. These reactions are rarely about the moment itself. They're echoes of an old algorithm, firing off the same line of code that was written years ago. When you notice a reaction like that, pause and ask yourself, what does this remind me of? More often than not, the answer will point back to a memory where the original line of code was written. The good news is that once you notice these patterns, you can start to interrupt them. You don't need to fix your entire life at once. You just need to introduce a small disruption in the loop. For example, the next time you hear yourself repeating an old story like, "Things never work out," try adding the word "until now" at the end. It seems simple, but that tiny shift turns a life sentence into a temporary condition. Suddenly, your subconscious has room to consider a different outcome. This is the first glimpse of rewriting your algorithm, nudging the code in a new direction. Think of your hidden blueprint as a GPS set to a route you didn't choose. Every time you try to veer off course, it recalculates and brings you back to the same destination. By spotting the old stories and triggers, you're finally taking the wheel and reprogramming the route. And here's the thing. You don't have to know the whole new destination yet. You only need to interrupt the old one. Every small disruption weakens the automatic pull of the pattern, and with repetition, new possibilities start to emerge. Consider someone who grew up hearing that money is always scarce. That belief becomes a program. As an adult, no matter how much they earn, they unconsciously find ways to spend it quickly, lose opportunities, or sabotage financial stability. On the surface, it looks like mismanagement. Underneath, it's the algorithm following its instructions. But once that person notices the belief, once they catch themselves thinking, "Money always disappears," they can pause and test a new thought, like, "Money grows when I care for it." Pair that with one small practical action, like saving a single dollar a day, and the new code starts embedding itself. It's not about dramatic overnight change. It's about slowly teaching the subconscious a new instruction until it becomes the default. The promise of decoding your hidden blueprint is simple yet profound. Your patterns are not permanent. They are just programs. And programs can be rewritten. The déjà vu of your life isn't a trap. It's a map. Every repeated struggle is a marker pointing you toward the line of code that most needs your attention. When you approach life with this perspective, frustration turns into curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me again?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me about my code?" That question alone shifts you from victim to designer. As we move deeper into this journey, you'll learn more about how these inner algorithms work, how emotions amplify them, how subconscious beliefs power them, and how to break them in real time. But for now, it's enough to recognize that you are not just a passenger in your life. You are also the programmer. The blueprint of your inner universe is hidden, but it's not locked. You have the keys, and the moment you choose to look at the code, you begin the process of change. And that's where this exploration truly begins. With the simple decision to stop blaming luck or fate, and to start noticing the patterns that have been shaping you all along. Because once you see the blueprint, you can finally build something new. You wake up each morning and move through your day believing you are in control of your choices. You decide what to wear, what to eat, who to talk to, how to react. It feels like free will, but underneath, something quieter and much older is shaping those decisions before you even realize you're making them. This hidden layer is your subconscious operating system. It runs in the background like the software on your phone, invisible but powerful, guiding every tap and swipe of your life. This operating system was not chosen consciously. It was built from the moment you were born. The voices of your parents, the culture you grew up in, the experiences that marked you, all of these became lines of code written into your subconscious. By the time you were 7 years old, most of your core programs were already installed. That means the adult you are today is still running childhood software. Every belief about love, safety, money, success, and self-worth sits deep in this invisible layer. And unless you bring it to the surface, it quietly dictates the story you keep living. You might notice this in the way you automatically respond to certain situations. A friend forgets to text you back, and without thinking, you feel rejected. That reaction didn't come from logic. It came from an old script that equates silence with abandonment. Or maybe you hear about someone else's achievement and, without meaning to, you shrink inside, comparing yourself and feeling less than. Again, that wasn't reason speaking. It was your subconscious replaying an old line of code that says, "I'm not enough." These little moments accumulate and create the tone of your life. The tricky thing about the subconscious is that it feels like reality. If you believe, deep down, that you're not worthy, your mind won't say, "I'm running a program of unworthiness." Instead, it will quietly shape your choices to prove the belief true. You'll hesitate to apply for opportunities, you'll overlook people who treat you well, you'll unconsciously sabotage progress, until the world around you reflects the inner program. This is why life often feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So how do you begin to work with this hidden operating system? The first step is awareness. You can't change what you can't see. One practical way to bring your subconscious programs into the light is through a simple method I call pause and trace. Whenever you notice a strong emotional reaction, pause for a few seconds. Ask yourself, if I trace this feeling back, what old story does it connect to? Don't overthink it. Often the first memory or phrase that comes up is the clue. For example, feeling anxious when speaking in public might trace back to being laughed at in school. That old memory wrote the line of code that still runs today. By tracing it, you expose it. Another method is to pay attention to repeated language in your daily thoughts. The subconscious loves repetition. If you catch yourself often saying, "I always mess things up," or "people never listen to me," don't dismiss it as just venting. Write it down. Keep a small notebook or even a note on your phone. Over a week, you'll see recurring themes. Those themes are not random. They are the code of your operating system speaking out loud. Once you've spotted these hidden programs, you can start to gently edit them. This doesn't mean replacing them with fake positivity. Your subconscious doesn't respond to lies. If you don't believe, "I am a millionaire," repeating it won't fool your system. Instead, introduce bridge thoughts, statements that feel possible but still point in a new direction. If your old program says, "I always fail," your bridge could be, "Sometimes I've figured things out, and I can learn again." It may seem small, but the subconscious accepts what feels believable. Over time, these bridge statements build new lines of code that gradually replace the old ones. Here's another method. Create small experiments that contradict your old programming. If your subconscious says, "I can't trust people," test it by allowing someone to do one small thing for you, like carrying a bag or keeping a simple promise. If your subconscious says, "I'm bad with money," test it by saving just $5 and keeping it safe for a month. These experiments provide evidence to your subconscious that the old code isn't absolute. Evidence is what rewrites the program. It's important to remember that this process takes patience. You are working with scripts that have been running for decades. Expecting them to vanish overnight is like asking a computer to instantly rewrite an entire operating system while it's still running. But each time you pause, trace, reframe, or experiment, you're adding a new line of code. With repetition, the balance shifts. One day you react differently to a trigger that used to control you, and you realize the system is changing. The beauty of this work is that the subconscious isn't your enemy. It isn't trying to sabotage you. It was designed to protect you, to automate survival. If as a child you learned that staying quiet kept you safe, your subconscious kept that code running into adulthood, even if now, speaking up would help you thrive. The operating system isn't malicious. It's outdated. And like any outdated program, it just needs an update. The moment you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as someone carrying old code, the shame lifts. You understand why you've repeated certain cycles, why some goals always seemed out of reach, why relationships played out in familiar patterns. It wasn't weakness. It was programming. And programming can be changed. As this chapter closes, you don't need to have all the answers. You only need to notice the system running in the background. Catch the stories, trace the feelings, and begin to test new possibilities. That's how you start taking the steering wheel back from the subconscious. And once you do, the rest of the journey, the algorithms of emotion, the patterns of energy, the rewrites and upgrades, becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Every emotion you feel is not just a fleeting mood. It is a piece of code, a signal that tells your system how to respond, what to expect, and what to create next. Emotions don't simply rise and fade. They set instructions in motion. That is why one bad morning can spill into an entire day, and one small spark of joy can suddenly make everything seem lighter. Your emotions are algorithms, loops that shape your experience in ways most people never realize. Think of it like this. When you feel fear, your body doesn't just acknowledge it. It prepares for danger. Muscles tense, breathing changes, perception narrows. Your system runs a program that says, "Protect yourself." When you feel joy, your body relaxes, you notice more opportunities, and you connect with others more easily. The emotion doesn't stay inside. It spills outward, shaping the way the world responds to you. This is why two people can walk into the same room and have completely different experiences. One enters with frustration and sees only obstacles. The other enters with curiosity and sees possibilities. Their inner algorithms colored the reality they encountered. The problem is that most people live in emotional feedback loops they don't realize they've created. A small disappointment triggers anger, which fuels negative thoughts, which generate more anger until the loop strengthens itself. Or loneliness leads to withdrawal, which makes connection harder, which deepens loneliness, reinforcing the loop. Left unchecked, these emotional algorithms keep recycling themselves, trapping you in states that feel permanent even when they're not. Breaking out of these loops starts with noticing when you are inside one. The simplest method is to ask yourself, what emotion has been the background of my last hour? It might be tension, boredom, worry, or calm. By naming it, you bring the unconscious loop into conscious awareness. That act alone weakens its hold. Another method is called pattern pause. When you catch yourself spiraling in a familiar emotional reaction, stop and take 3 deliberate breaths. Those breaths don't erase the feeling, but they interrupt the momentum. giving you a window to choose something different. Once you've paused the loop, you can install a new instruction. For example, if frustration has been repeating all day, try asking, "What is one thing I can appreciate right now?" It could be as small as the chair you're sitting in or the fact that you have air to breathe. That shift in focus doesn't magically fix everything, but it alters the emotional code. Appreciation opens a different loop, one that creates more calm and receptivity. Another method is called state rehearsal. Your body doesn't distinguish much between vividly imagined emotions and real ones. If you spend a few minutes each day recalling a time you felt genuine joy or deep peace, and you allow yourself to feel that state again, you are rehearsing a new algorithm. The more you rehearse it, the easier it becomes for your system to call it up naturally in daily life. This is how athletes use visualization, and it works just as powerfully with emotions. It's also important to understand that your emotions ripple outward. When you walk into a room heavy with irritation, people feel it, even if you never say a word. When you enter with openness, others sense that too. Your emotional signature influences how people respond to you, which then feeds back into your own experience. This is why shifting your emotional state, even slightly, can change not only your inner world but also the external responses you receive. Of course, no one can live in perfect emotional states all the time. The goal is not to eliminate sadness, anger, or fear. Those emotions have messages too. The goal is to stop letting them run unchecked as endless loops. Feel the emotion, trace it back, interrupt the automatic program, and choose how you want to guide it forward. When sadness shows up, you can sit with it, breathe, and ask what it's pointing to, instead of letting it spiral into hopelessness. When anger arises, you can use the energy to set a boundary, instead of recycling it into self-destruction. The key is choice. Without awareness, emotions feel like they control you. With awareness, they become tools. You don't deny them, but you don't hand them the steering wheel either. You let them inform you, then you decide which algorithm to keep running. As you practice this, you'll notice that even small shifts have compounding effects. A single moment of calm in the middle of stress can prevent an argument. A spark of gratitude can open the door to a new idea. One interruption of an old loop can create space for an entirely different outcome. Over time, these choices stack, and your emotional operating system begins to look and feel different. This chapter is not about forcing yourself into constant positivity. It's about realizing that your emotions are not accidents. They are instructions. The more you understand and influence those instructions, the more your inner universe aligns with the reality you want to experience. You stop being a passenger in your feelings and start becoming the coder of your emotional life. And once you see yourself in that role, every reaction becomes an opportunity to write a new line of code. Everyone knows the feeling of being caught in a loop. You promise yourself you won't react the same way, but the moment arrives and the script plays itself again. Maybe you say words you regret, fall into the same argument, or repeat a habit that drains you. It almost feels like you're watching yourself from the outside, powerless to stop it. That's the power of an old algorithm running on autopilot. But here's the truth. Every loop has a weak point, and when you find that point, you can interrupt the cycle and redirect it. The first weak point is awareness in the body. Patterns often announce themselves physically before they fully take over. Your chest tightens, your shoulders rise, your jaw clenches. If you can learn to catch the signal in your body, you've caught the loop at its earliest stage. A simple method here is what I call body check-ins. Once or twice a day, pause and scan your body for tension. Ask, where am I holding this? Then take one deep breath into that spot, imagining it loosening even slightly. That single breath is a small but powerful interruption. Another weak point is language. Pay attention to the phrases you use right before a loop takes over. Maybe you say, "Here we go again," or "I can't stand this," or "It always turns out this way." Those words are the doorway into the old pattern. The method here is to replace the doorway phrase with a redirect. Instead of "Here we go again," try, "This is my chance to do it differently." It doesn't guarantee perfection, but it shifts the direction of the algorithm before it locks in. Sometimes the loop is more stubborn and catches you in full swing. In those moments, don't waste energy beating yourself up. Instead, use what I call a pattern break move. This is a physical action that jolts your system out of the old script. You might clap your hands, stand up and stretch, drink a glass of water, or even walk into a different room. The move doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to disrupt the momentum. Your brain and body can't fully stay in the loop if you introduce an unexpected action. Another method is the question shift. When you feel the loop tightening, ask yourself a question your old program would never ask. For example, if your pattern is self-criticism, the question could be, what is one thing I did right today? If your pattern is anger, the question could be, what outcome do I actually want here? Questions pull the mind into a different algorithm because they require new answers. Even if the answer is small, the loop has been interrupted. For some people, writing is the best interruption tool. The next time a pattern rises, grab a notebook and write for 2 minutes straight about what you're feeling. Don't censor, just pour it out. Often by the end of 2 minutes, the intensity has already shifted. That's because putting the loop into words moves it from the subconscious into the conscious. And once it's conscious, you can work with it instead of being run by it. It's also helpful to create what I call pattern pre-decisions. These are choices you make in calm moments that prepare you for the next trigger. For instance, if you know your loop is overreading when stressed, you can decide ahead of time, when I feel the urge, I will first drink tea. The tea won't solve everything, but it inserts a pause between trigger and action. That pause is where change lives. The important thing to remember is that breaking loops is not about never feeling the old urge again. It's about shortening the lifespan of the loop each time it appears. At first, you may only notice after the loop has finished. Then you'll start noticing halfway through. Eventually, you'll catch it at the beginning. Each stage is progress. Each interruption, no matter how small, weakens the grip of the old algorithm and strengthens the new one you're building. The more you practice, the more you realize how much freedom you actually have. The patterns that felt like destiny reveal themselves as habits. The loops that seemed unbreakable turn out to be fragile once you shine light on them. And the self you thought was fixed shows itself to be flexible, capable of learning new scripts at any moment. Breaking loops isn't about becoming flawless. It's about creating openings. Each opening is a chance for a new response, a new experience, a new reality. Over time, those openings stitch together into a different kind of life, one that isn't dictated by the past but shaped by your conscious choice in the present. And that is the essence of interrupting negative patterns. The decision, moment by moment, to stop running the same old code and to write something new. If you've ever felt like certain opportunities slip away from you while others always seem to land in your lap, it's not just coincidence. Each person moves through life with a unique energetic pattern, a personal matrix that silently attracts some experiences and repels others. This matrix is not mystical in a far-off sense. It is built from your beliefs, your emotions, and the invisible default settings you've inherited. To understand why life feels the way it does, you need to decode this matrix. The personal matrix is like a frequency you carry. Imagine tuning a radio. If you're set to a particular station, that's the only music you'll hear, even though thousands of other stations exist. In the same way, your inner settings tune you to certain kinds of experiences. If your frequency is set to scarcity, you'll tune into situations that confirm money is always short. If it's set to mistrust, you'll notice only the evidence that people can't be trusted. The station you're tuned to determines the reality you keep experiencing, even while other possibilities exist just out of range. Part of this matrix comes from recurring triggers that act like built-in alarms. Every time the alarm goes off, you respond in the same way, reinforcing the same story. If a colleague ignores your idea in a meeting and your trigger is, "I'm invisible," the matrix strengthens that frequency. The more the trigger fires, the more the pattern becomes your default channel. The only way to loosen its hold is to catch the trigger in the moment and see it for what it is. A line of old code, not the truth of who you are. One practical way to work with triggers is to name them out loud when they appear. Saying to yourself, this is the invisibility script showing up, creates just enough distance to see it instead of being swallowed by it. Another layer of the matrix is the set of default settings you didn't consciously choose but inherited. These come from family, culture, and even generations before you. Perhaps your parents carried anxiety about survival, and now you feel anxious even when you're safe. Perhaps your culture passed down ideas about what success must look like, and now you push yourself into molds that don't fit. These defaults can run your life quietly for years, until you notice they aren't really yours. A method here is to ask yourself, whose belief is this? Whenever you catch a limiting thought, often you'll realize it doesn't even belong to you, it was borrowed. And if it was borrowed, you can return it. Then there is your unique frequency, the part of the matrix that is yours alone. This is built from your deepest values and natural ways of being. Some people naturally draw others in with warmth. Some draw opportunities because they radiate persistence. Others create space for ideas to flow because they carry curiosity. To discover your frequency, look at the moments when life felt most aligned, when things seemed to flow without forcing. What qualities were present in you then? Those qualities are clues to the signal you naturally broadcast. The more you live in alignment with them, the stronger your frequency becomes, and the more your external world begins to reflect it back. Decoding your personal matrix doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a practice of observing the triggers, questioning the defaults, and strengthening the signal you want to carry. Start small. Pick one trigger you notice often. The next time it arises, pause and label it. Pick one belief you suspect isn't yours. Write it down and ask, do I choose to keep this, or can I release it? Then pick one quality you want to amplify. Maybe it's courage, maybe it's kindness, and find one action today that expresses it. These small steps begin to shift the station of your matrix, tuning you into a different frequency of experience. The magic of this process is that as your matrix changes, the world around you responds. Relationships feel different. Opportunities appear where there were none. Old patterns lose their grip. It can feel like the universe itself is changing, but really, it's you who has changed the broadcast. Life is a mirror, and when you adjust the signal, the reflection transforms. Your personal matrix is not a prison. It is a system waiting to be decoded and redesigned. The moment you stop seeing your life as random and start seeing it as a reflection of your inner settings, you reclaim your power. You realize that you are not just a participant in the program, you are the coder of the frequency you live in. And once you know that, you are free to tune into a reality that finally matches the life you want to create. Up to this point, you've seen that your life runs on hidden algorithms, old scripts, inherited defaults, emotional loops. Recognizing them is powerful, but recognition alone is not enough. Awareness opens the door. Rewriting the code is what changes the program. This is where you stop being a passive user of your operating system and start becoming the designer. Rewriting doesn't mean erasing everything about yourself. You don't need to wipe the slate clean. It means updating the instructions so they actually match who you are now and the life you want to live. Just like a phone or computer needs periodic updates, your inner universe needs them too. The difference is, here, you're both the programmer and the device. One of the simplest ways to start rewriting is through intentional language. Every belief lives as a sentence inside you. When you say, I'm not good with people, that sentence is code. When you say, things never work out for me, that's code too. To rewrite, you don't need to fight the sentence head-on with fake positivity. Instead, soften it into a version your subconscious can believe. If the old line is, I always fail, you might rewrite it as, sometimes I've succeeded, and I can learn to succeed again. This isn't just wordplay. It's like inserting a new line of code that the system can actually run without rejecting it. Over time, the old script loses power and the new one becomes the default. Another method is rehearsal of desired states. Think of how athletes visualize every movement of their performance before stepping onto the field. You can do the same with inner states. Spend a few minutes imagining yourself in a situation where you usually get stuck, maybe a difficult conversation or a creative project, and picture yourself responding differently. Feel the calm in your body, the confidence in your voice, the flow of ideas. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between vividly imagined practice and real experience. Each rehearsal lays down new pathways, making it easier for you to embody that state when the real moment arrives. Flow is another powerful form of rewriting. Flow happens when your actions and focus line up so fully that time seems to dissolve. In this state, productivity feels effortless, creativity blossoms, and the self-critic grows quiet. You can cultivate flow by removing distractions, working on tasks that challenge but don't overwhelm you, and setting clear intentions before you begin. The more you practice flow, the more your system learns a new algorithm, one where effort doesn't always equal struggle, but instead becomes a natural expression of your energy. There's also the practice of default replacement. Think of the areas where you notice the most stuckness: relationships, money, self-worth. Behind each one is a default setting you inherited. The rewrite begins by naming the default clearly. I believe love always ends in pain, or I believe success requires sacrifice. Once named, choose a new default consciously. Love can be safe, or success can come with balance. Then back it up with one small action in alignment with the new default. If your new line is, love can be safe, maybe you open up honestly to a trusted friend about something small. If your new line is, success can come with balance, maybe you set aside an hour to rest without guilt. The action proves the code is real, and your subconscious updates accordingly. Manifestation is often misunderstood as wishing hard enough for something to appear. But the deeper truth is that manifestation is an algorithm. It is not about forcing outcomes but aligning your internal code with what you desire so your actions, emotions, and opportunities fall naturally into place. When your inner program says, I'm unworthy, no amount of wishing will bring lasting change. When your code says, I can receive what matches my effort and values, then suddenly the external world has a new instruction to respond to. Manifestation is less about magic and more about internal design. The process of rewriting takes patience, but it doesn't need to be heavy. Think of it like sculpting. Each small shift in language, each rehearsal of a new state, each moment of flow, each default replacement. These are strokes of the chisel. Slowly, the rough block of old programming transforms into something that actually resembles who you are meant to be. And the beauty is that you never stop being the sculptor. The old codes won't disappear overnight, but they don't need to. You only need to weaken them enough that the new instructions can take root. Over time, your system begins to follow the upgraded lines without effort. Where you once spiraled into old loops, you now find yourself responding differently, almost automatically. That's the sign that your inner code has been rewritten, not through force, but through consistent, intentional design. The power to reprogram is the ultimate freedom. It means you're not doomed to repeat the past, not shackled by inherited defaults, not stuck in feedback loops. You can choose. You can write new instructions. And when you do, your inner universe recalibrates, your outer world shifts, and the story you've been living changes into one you've consciously created. The work of decoding and rewriting your inner algorithms is not just personal, it's part of something larger. As you begin to shift your own code, you notice that life responds differently, and so do the people around you. This is where the future of inner engineering unfolds, a space where personal practice and collective evolution meet. Science is already showing us that the mind and body are not fixed machines. Neuroplasticity proves the brain can rewire itself. Pathways carved by decades of old thinking can be reshaped with new habits, new beliefs, new emotional states. Biofeedback tools now allow us to watch, in real time, how thoughts shift the rhythm of the heart, how breathing calms the nervous system, how focus changes brain waves. What once felt like mystical language now finds echoes in measurable data. Your inner universe is not intangible. It is both energy and biology, both science and spirit, and every discovery in this field confirms what seekers and healers have always known. You are not stuck with the code you were given. As technology continues to advance, so will our ability to participate in this process with more precision. Imagine wearing a device that signals when your emotional loop is about to spiral, reminding you to pause and breathe. Imagine guided neural training that strengthens pathways of calm and creativity until they become your default. These possibilities are not distant science fiction. They are already beginning to take shape. The future of inner engineering is about becoming an active participant in your own evolution, blending ancient wisdom with modern tools to consciously shape your inner landscape. But the most important part is not the gadgets or the research. It is the realization that every inner shift contributes to a larger collective algorithm. When one person breaks the loop of anger, the ripple spreads to their family, their community, and beyond. When one person chooses compassion over criticism, that choice becomes part of a wider pattern. The collective consciousness is nothing more than billions of personal algorithms interacting. As each individual rewrites their code, the collective code evolves. That means your personal work is never small. Every inner upgrade you make feeds into the larger system we all share. This journey does not end with a final line of code. There is no finished version of you, no point at which the updates stop. Life will always offer new triggers, new challenges, new layers of yourself to uncover. The future of inner engineering is not about reaching perfection. It is about embracing the continuous process of refinement. Just as technology keeps updating, so too do we. Each loop you break, each belief you replace, each new state you rehearse adds to the ongoing evolution of your inner universe. So as you stand at this point in the journey, remember that you hold both the problem and the solution within you. The patterns you once thought were destiny are simply algorithms waiting to be decoded. The emotional loops you thought controlled you are programs you can interrupt. The defaults you inherited can be rewritten. And with each new instruction you install, you not only change your own life, you contribute to the unfolding code of humanity itself. Your future is not predetermined. It is programmable. And every moment you choose awareness, every breath you use to break a loop, every thought you reframe, every state you rehearse, you are engineering that future. Not someday, but right now, in this moment, with the code you choose to run.